Welcome again to this episode, very special episode from Takatof. Together We Stand, the wonderful program put together by UNDP and the CSS at the University of Jordan. Today's episode marks a milestone in the achievements of the anti-program for the last 6 months, whereby UNDP and CSS both jointly have focused on bringing the best of Jordanian solidarity in terms of its values, institutions, policies, and practices. Among the most important issues that actually been the heart and the backbone of the entire programs is this issue of human security, whether within, before, or after this pandemic. So human security, as complicated the concept might sound, it is actually at the core of our human behavior and day-to-day activities. The pandemic only has strengthened the highly needed efforts to rethink human security in a new terms and for more solidarity among societies, nations, states, and individuals to overcome together sentiments, fears, challenges, crises, and more, the challenge to our nature. Today, I am very delighted and honored to welcome to this episode a very special guests from a very important institutions, Mrs. Akamoto, the Executive Senior Research Fellow at the JICA Research Institute, and Mrs. Mihaya. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name not in a proper way. I'll excuse my Japanese. I speak only Arabic sometimes, but it's a great pleasure having you with us as a chief representative of JICA Jordan office. And I hope time will permit for an in-person meeting with your good self and your staff here in Jordan. So, as I'm instructed by my team at CSS, we will start this presentation, this episode by showing a presentation and sharing a presentation with our viewers. So I will turn now to Mrs. Akamutu to start her presentation, and then I will be raising some questions.
Okay, so let me share with my slide. Is now the slide on screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Dr. Zaid, thank you very much for your kind introduction, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to join this important Takatof. Well, as for the human security issue, I would like to start with this argument. The argument on the slide is cited by the East Asian Forum, an international think tank dedicated to the study of international policy, led by Australian National University. Here, Dr. Fukushima argues that COVID-19 is a crisis for the realization of human security. As evidenced by the widespread impact, it has had not only on infectious diseases and healthcare issues, but on our society at large, events that threaten the livelihood and dignity of each of us. Under current situation, the concept of human security has become more important than ever. Human security is a concept that considers security, putting people at the center, not just the security of the state. I hope that talking about human security in the era of COVID-19 will encourage each of us to think about who is able to protect people's lives, livelihood, and dignity, and how we are able to protect and empower ourselves. Today, I would like to introduce human security not only as a concept, but also the core of the Japanese government policy for development cooperation and standpoint of JICA's approach. Here, I would like to think together with you today how we can identify threats and ensure human security. The concept of human security was originally propounded in the Human Development Report 1994. In the end of last century, the Cold War was over and wars between nations have decreased. On the other hand, there were increasing internal conflicts and non-military threats such as economic crisis or infectious diseases. A situation emerged in which the question of whether people were not secured, even though their state security was guaranteed internationally. State security became not enough, but new way of thinking about security, namely human security, arose. The Human Development Report 1994 argued that achieving human security meant freeing people from the want of poverty or hunger, as well as from the fear of conflict and violence. It also argued that the promotion of human security required economic, food, health, and environmental improvements in the individual, community, and political spheres. Nowadays, as you may know very well, threats to human security covers not only conflict, but terrorism, natural disasters, infectious diseases, economic crisis, distrust between ethnic or religious groups, lack of rule of law, and freedom of speech, and so on. Then, I'd like to think together with you who are vulnerable to the threats. One threat affects different people differently. For example, poor people are more affected by the economic crisis than rich people. Elderly are considered to be more affected by COVID-19. There are such people who are especially vulnerable to threats. The Japanese government approved the Development Cooperation Charter in 2015, and this policy document referred to those liable to be vulnerable, such as children, women, persons with disabilities, the elderly, refugees and internally displaced persons, ethnic minorities, and indigenous peoples. It is crucial to identify who are vulnerable to what threats and prioritize the security of those people. So, who ensures human security and how their approach should be? There are various layers of entities which are able to protect people at global, regional, national, and subnational level. Furthermore, the state is expected not only to protect its people, but also to empower its people. Empowerment means to enhance individuals' capacity. Therefore, in peacetime, those actors engaged in development and humanitarian assistance can support the capacity enhancement of both government protection and people's empowerment, and this interaction secures the survival, livelihood, and dignity of the people. When an emerging case of natural or man-made disaster occurs, people's ability to empower themselves may temporarily decline. At this time, if the outside actors can strengthen the government function of protection, human security will be ensured. Concurrently, the actors should carefully examine the emergence of people's spontaneous self-help actions toward recovery. If this is observed, it becomes crucial for the actors to shift the priority of the assistance from the protection by the government to the empowerment of the people. I understand that Takatof introduces the initiatives led by the people in the community. So now, let me share the history of development of human security concept. Based on what we have thought about, what are the various threats, who are particularly vulnerable to threats, who protect people, and how. After Human Development Report 1994, in 2003, the report to Secretary General of the United Nations, Human Security Now, positioned human security as a broad concept encompassing freedom from fear and freedom from want. It also added the element of freedom to live in dignity to the concept. This dignity aspect made the concept of human security unique. People may be able to live their life with no fear or want, but to live their life as a human, two freedoms may not be enough, but people need to live in dignity. The report also emphasizes making people-centered security issues subject to policy considerations, focusing on both the most vulnerable and community, taking both protection and empowerment approaches, and the need for a cross-sectoral response. Then, the United Nations General Assembly resolution adopted in October 2012 endorsed the concept of human security. In today's world, there are a lot of downside risks caused by threats, like what is happening now because of COVID-19. As referred in United Nations General Assembly resolution, human security is a concept that aims to build a world where everyone can live in dignity, free from fear and want, through protection and empowerment of all individuals. Since the introduction of the concept of human security by Human Development Report 1994, the Japanese government incorporated this principle into its international development assistance policy. Japan's revised Development Cooperation Charter, endorsed by the Cabinet in 2015, defined three basic policies as the direction for development cooperation. A, contributing to peace and prosperity through cooperation for non-military purposes. B, promoting human security. C, cooperation aimed at self-reliant development through assistance for self-help efforts as well as dialogue and collaboration based on Japan's experience and expertise. The second basic policy, promoting human security, describes that human security, which is a concept that pursues the right of individuals to live happily and in dignity, free from fear and want, through their protection and empowerment, is the guiding principle that lies at the foundation of Japan's development cooperation. Japan will thus focus its development cooperation on individuals, especially those liable to be vulnerable. Japan will make efforts so that this basic policy mainstream the concept even further in the international community. JICA, during Madame Ogata's presidency from 2003 to 2012, has developed the perspectives and approaches on human security. We try to have perspectives realizing both protection and empowerment, focusing on the socially vulnerable and those under crisis, tackling both fear and want, and responding to cross-border threats. We also try to take approaches combining top-down and bottom-up approaches, providing cross-sectoral aid, partnership with various actors, and managing downside risks. Now, I'd like to mention human security in JICA at present. JICA's mission is to achieve human security and quality growth. This mission has a high affinity with the principles of the Sustainable Development Goals adopted in 2015. The Japanese government and JICA have emphasized the importance of human security when the post-Millennium Development Goals were discussed at the United Nations and other forums. As a result, the concept of people-centeredness and benefiting the socially vulnerable, which form the basis of the concept of human security, have been expressed in terms of the SDGs. Those are a people-centered agenda with phrases such as "no one is left behind" and "inclusive society," which are the principles of the SDGs. Just as human security emphasizes a comprehensive approach, or in other words, a multi-sectoral approach to solving the various challenges faced by each individual, the SDGs call for a comprehensive and integrated approach, paying attention to the interconnectedness between goals and targets. Therefore, we think that human security and SDGs are complementary each other to build resilient society. 25 years have passed since human security was mentioned in the 1994 Human Development Report. In the world in which we live today, existing issues such as rapid influx of forcibly displaced people, scaling up of natural disasters, and infectious diseases are becoming more acute. while new issues such as widening disparities, aging populations, the impact of rapidly advancing science and technology on society, and ocean plastics, which were not so apparent 25 years ago, also pose a threat to people. Under these circumstances, JICA is reaffirming the importance of human security and updated its approach as revisiting human security, and is now working to identify contemporary issues that threaten the realization of a society in which each and every human being can live with dignity, and to strengthen its efforts to resolve these issues. Through updating our approach shown in revisiting human security, JICA has identified contemporary issues that threaten the realization of a society in which each and every human being can live with dignity, and is working to strengthen its efforts to resolve their issues. The guiding principles of current human security are to protect individuals' rights to life, livelihood, and human dignity, to empower individuals, organizations, and societies to increase their capabilities, and to building resilient societies or systems that can protect themselves against various threats. We consider what is necessary for people to live with dignity and emphasize cooperation in the areas of empowerment to enable people to pursue and fulfill their potential, and building resilient systems that protect people against diverse threats. COVID-19 has caused millions of deaths in the world and changed our lives completely. Clearly, it's a global threat to human security. We have new tools for communication with each other, which allow us to connect with the world virtually like at present. On the other hand, it is important to imagine the joy or suffering or the sorrow behind each person in the video, and to think together about what we can do to make each other feel comfortable. I believe that the concept of human security can help us to think and take such actions. So thank you very much. This is from my side. I now finished my slides.
Wow, thank you very much. Congratulations, Ms. Moto. This is impressive.
Thank you so much.
Reconceptualizing and retelling and re-narrating the development of the very concept of a human security. And no wonder, JICA Research Institute will bring to the table and infuse to the world wonderful ideas and very important terms that governments, nations, societies, and individuals can act accordingly. And in Takatof, as you mentioned in your presentation, with the help of UNDP and our common vision to what needs to be done in Jordan and to reflect on what has happened, as I said, the human security was the main, if you wish, the major component, the linkages that goes and diffuses itself in all other topics that we have discussed. And referring to the 1993 and 1994 UNDP report, which is, I'm indebted to that report and to the people working in it, Amartya Sen and the others, because it actually triggered here in Jordan, at the University of Jordan, to establish the one of its first kind in the region, a program of human rights and human development. So in my mind, this human security sums up the conceptualization of human rights, the indices of human development, and the philosophy of well-being to everyone. And in that, I just want to raise this question for you, Ms. Akamoto, in a very simple way. I've seen this, if you wish, incremental historical development of the concept and the definition. But if for our viewers and for more solid policies recommendation, and given the impact of COVID-19, what are the main component indicators of human security you would focus more on?
Well, Well, thank you very much, Dr. Zaid, for this question, and thank you for sharing me with your experience and Jordanian experience. I was really impressed that the Jordanian University has the course to study about human rights and also human security, and I feel it's really important to empower people from the bottom. I'm really impressed with that. So, well, and also thank you for the question. It's because human security is such a concept which bridges not only how to avoid fear or want, but also how human security is a concept, how to secure people's dignity. So I myself feel that not only supporting people to get rid of fear and want, but also to think together how all the people can live with dignity, which is, in my understanding, all the people are respected as human beings, and all people can live in comfortable feeling or comfortable way. This is my simple understanding of dignity. So I hope not only freedom from fear and want, but the unique character of human security is, I think, its dignity. So to think together about how to promote humans' dignity, I think this is very important. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Indeed, human dignity, it's all about it. Now, let me turn the questions to Ms. Chi Miyahara, the Jordan's office representative, the chief representative in Jordan. And I really thank you for making the time to join us. This is very important for the CSS, for UNDP, for Takatof, and for our common goals in promoting human security and empowering people and freeing them from fear and want. So given the presentation, given your experiences, and given the discussion we just already had, in your own mind and within this context, how would you turn this into practice, operationalize the concept and the definition of human security into policies, practices, activities, and projects? Floor is yours, Ms. Miyahara.
Thank you very much, Professor Zaid, and thank you very much for University of Jordan to hosting this event. And JICA has been working very closely with the university in different fields, but basically to study, to teach Japanese language actually, and have been a long history. And we recently had a very big seminar with the University of Jordan to show our development or modernization experiences with the student of University of Jordan. So I'm very, very glad to always hosting and having good relationship with us for the university. And when it comes to the human security, how we operationalize that kind of concept into our activities in Jordan, to be honest, we don't always think about the human security issues in our mind because it is coming so natural when we develop our activities. And JICA now is the largest bilateral donor agency in the world and has a variety of supporting schemes, and all of which has been applied to Jordan context. And if I can go for this higher level, as Ms. Muto said, the protection by the government, we have supporting the government, providing some development policy loan. For example, something like $300 million US for one agreement that will support healthy financial management of Jordan government budget. And we are planning that will be ending up sustainable provision of social protection services to the citizens by the government. And we have implemented a series of such kind of supports amounting in total to date more than $1 billion US to Jordan government, and most of which are targeting sectors which can contribute to economic stability and sustainability. And at the same time, we work together with government entities or agencies of Jordan government. For example, we worked with the Ministry of Labor to improve matching demand and supply in the job market. I mean, demand from the private sector and supply from the universities to improve unemployment rate among the young people. Yeah. So we had also worked for many years with the Ministry of Health for improving maternity health issues in rural areas, basically targeting in the southern part, which brought a new way of thinking of gender issue, which is also very important for the human dignity in a way in the society. It was very, very tough to think about, introducing about the gender issue in the rural area in New Jordan. But we approached, for example, tribal leaders, explaining that we are not challenging Islam itself, but it's just giving a better life to the wife and children, and which eventually support the father and the entire family through maternity health issues. It was a very tough one, but it was very successful. And we copied the same type of project in the northern part of Jordan, where the government of Jordan received a lot of Syrian refugees in that area. Mostly because of the Japanese, JICA is a government, mostly government entity. So we work with government counterpart agencies, but we also work with the private sector and also civilians, civilians directory. This is the kind of protection side or the empowerment side of human security. For example, on the ground, we work together with the locals through our volunteers and through working with NGOs. Unfortunately, most of the volunteers had to go back to Japan because of this pandemic, but before March this year, a lot of Japanese volunteers work with, for example, UNRWA or at the Syrian refugee camp to empower the refugees or refugee children, or even the teachers of UNRWA schools for non-cognitive education, such as gymnastics, music, and art, which can enrich the feeling of the refugees or children, or sometimes the parents of the refugee children. And in terms of the private sector, for example, we had the private investment project with IFC and other lenders to support renewable energy provision to the areas affected by a lot of Syrian refugees influx. And also there's another Japanese private company who is expecting to invest in Jordan in agricultural sector. So we are working not only with the government entities, but also private sector. And these private sector companies have better modern techniques and approach to development issues. And some parts expecting to bring in more job opportunities for younger generations. So in a nutshell, we work with higher policy level to give better protection to the people by the government. And also we work together with locals to empower them to protect themselves by their own. So in terms of supporting refugees and the vulnerables, as Ms. Muto explained, we do both direct and indirect support to the refugees. And we always pay a good attention to the host communities and host countries. So we're not only focusing on the vulnerables or the refugees, but entire community and the entire areas to empower not only the refugees, but also the Jordanian people who are vulnerable also to the very difficult situations. Now we have a very huge impact from COVID-19 in Jordan. But so far we focus on its economic impact rather than health-related concerns. The main reason is that, as the professor notes, the government of Jordan had been doing very, very well controlling the spread of the virus than Japan, maybe until August. But now things have changed, and I understand that it needs more support, direct support for the vulnerables who had a very huge impact from economic growth and also the health issues and also education issues. So now we are starting to working together with the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education, what we can do, especially for the people who has less protection from the government or more vulnerable to this kind of huge impact from the infectious diseases. We are now trying to provide some kind of support for psychosocial, how can I say, supporting to the children in schools with the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education, which is not finalized yet. But this is one of the new issues which are now, which we are now tackling together with our counterparts. So this is how we are working. I just touched on very few projects which we have been doing in Jordan. But I think this is one part of how we operationalize, how we approaching about the issues, new issues concerning the human security in Jordan. Back to you, Professor Zaid.
Well, thank you so very much, Ms. Miyahara. This is not only music to my ears, but it is inclusive, comprehensive, and crisply clear plans and understandings of what the needs are, what human security entails, and how the cooperation and support should be. So it's not only governmental agencies, but also private sectors. It's not only empowering the new generations and the vulnerables, but also reaching out to all living in Jordan, including refugees and their children. It is not only the human health issues and the health impact of COVID, but also it's the psychosocial support. Look at that. This is exactly the kind of programs, activities I think our country, Jordan, and the rest of the countries are calling for a Japanese support and for JICA kind of guidelines, because the trust of the work you do and the trust of the deep understanding you lending to issues at hand. And now let me share with you very quick things that might be also of interest, just to reinforce the idea that UNDP, CSS, and now your good self, your institutions, and also JICA Research Institute, we're working in common causes and common issues. So CSS, for example, we've developed, understanding this gender gap and the gender problem that you just referred to in rural areas and other places. So we established what we called it the gender barometer, and it is the first of its kind in the region, never existed before. And we developed this parameters in total different mechanisms and methodology. We established a diploma program on refugees and migrations. And it is actually targeted Syrians living in Jordan to provide them with jobs. So we trying to qualify them and send them to the market, whether in Jordan or to Europe. We cooperating with so many institutions. I was very honored to receive your, Japanese former minister to Jordan many times to CSS. And also we're just planned a visit for the new coming ambassador to my office the first week of next year. So I really wanted to thank you. I do look forward to meeting you in person. You too, Ms. Muto, for this wonderful presentation. And I hope your research institute with CSS also can join forces to help advance some kind of common agenda that serves the interests of all humanity, human dignity, and ensure human security. Allow me now to really, by my behalf and the behalf of CSS team, UNDP, and also the radio of the University of Jordan, to thank you so very much for this wonderful participation. Thank you.